Hi everyone, a brief video introduction to Unit 4 for our school leadership course. This week we're looking at two additional chapters in the full text, one on understanding change and one on relationships. Those are the next two pieces of his educational change pie model that we looked at last week in chapter 1. As we go through these chapters, certainly I'd like you to be able to identify the little case studies he puts in and some of the key concepts and understanding each of these chapters. Not only do I want you to understand the title of the chapter and the significance of the title, I also want you to look at what are the key components of understanding the change process, and what are the key components to understanding relationships. What are the theoretical models he draws on? What are the case studies he uses? When we look forward to you writing your midterm exam, which is coming up shortly, I'm going to want to see that you've got very specific, detailed ways of applying the concepts from this full text to the children's story in A Big Orange Spot. And so pay close attention to not just the general understanding of the rel of relationships, but what are the specific mechanisms and what are the specific theories he's drawing from and the specific case studies he uses. So do some close reading for those of you who are Common Core folks. So this week our dialogue is really going to look at change in relationships. In my personal biography as an educational researcher, change is pretty central to what I do. Really, my graduate program that I graduated from at Penn State was called, my doctorate's in instructional systems. And this was a field of study that grew out of World War II, when the U.S. Army needed to train a bunch of farmers and laborers to operate heavy equipment, do complicated logistics, and essentially learn all types of new skills that their schools and whatever professional training they had didn't give them. And so they developed quite a good number of adult learning techniques, distance learning, correspondence courses, radio. Since then, that's been applied to university-based adult learning, and now we're seeing lots of inroads to K-12. And the students that I went to my graduate program with were designing the next and best Moodle. They were designing interactive video interfaces, and I wasn't as much interested in that, although I did have some computer science background that is sort of ancient history for me now. But I was very interested in what these people were finding as they created these great new interesting tools, was that they weren't being used all that much. And I think Fullen makes the point very well that the best idea is not always the one that gets implemented, because there are political, social, psychological processes that have to do with how we do our work every day, and there's no guarantee that the best ideas are going to be the ones that end up being implemented. And I find that a truly fascinating question. It draws on marketing and politics and social psychology and individual psychology. It gets at how we think about our work, what good it's doing. There's moral purpose from Fullen again. And how do we collaborate to ensure that our work is pulling in the same direction. So I find that the change process is a very exciting area to do work in, and most of my research and writing focuses on some aspect of that. I think that as you get through this week's posts, you'll be dealing with those two chapters from Fullen, and I think you'll get some nice insights into the change process as he sees it. Michael Fullen is one of the top 2 or 3 experts in the field of educational change, and so you're certainly getting it straight from the horse's mouth here. In addition to responding to the 2 readings out of Fullen, 2 chapters out of Fullen, you're also going to select one chapter from Jim Ellsworth's Surviving Change book. It's a PDF book available on Moodle. It's also available free from the ERIC site in the U.S. Department of Ed. Select one chapter that looks most interesting to you. There is a chapter on Fullen which you're free to use, but I encourage people to look out for another topic here. Historically, the section on resistance to change has been pretty popular, and so you may want to take a look at that one. But select any single chapter and also build that into your dialogue response in addition to the two pieces. Absolutely, as always, looking for comparisons and contrasts with what you see in the Fullen reading. You also have a field experience this week, which is your relationships field experience. This one doesn't require you to do any talking whatsoever. You'll be placing yourself in a public space in a school. Could be done in a different workplace other than a school, but I find we get the most benefit if we do this in the workplaces where we're going to continue working. But main office or a place where there's a lot of adult-to-adult interactions are great for this. You'll be looking to take notes on what are the things people are talking about. You might even write short quotes that you hear people saying to each other on a notes sheet. Oh, you might just provide summary. They were talking about their plans for the weekend. They were talking about the upcoming tests, retakes, or whatever. And what I want you to come away with after you sort of analyze the words that you hear, or what's the quality of the relationships of the people working in this place? Do they seem to know a lot about each other? Perhaps that's indicative of stable faculty who have a lot of understanding of each other. Are the relationships very task focused, or are they more interpersonal? Are there clear power differentials amongst teachers who essentially have the same formal role in a school, but do you see people who for whatever reason seem to hold more formal authority than others? If you have administration and teachers in conversation, what's that relationship? Is that very formal or is that more informal? And how's the dynamic there? So include a quick barometer of relationships. Now this isn't going to give you the best measure of the relationships in your school. There are some pretty good surveys out there that I encourage folks to find, and as you move into leadership positions, it's not a bad idea to take 2 or 3 times a year to do a school climate or culture survey, or to examine the relationships at your school. And so we can talk perhaps in the dialogue this week about where we can get some of those instruments. I think they're vital in a toolkit for any educator. But make sure that that goes into the response as well, your reaction to your field experience. We will be looking ahead towards your midterms, so if you haven't gotten the big orange splot text or the Bowman and Deal text, which we're going to read after that, make sure those are ordered. They're also in the bookstore because we'll be coming up to those soon. Next week is our last week, reading 5, 6, and 7 out of Fullen, and then we're on to the midterm, and then we're on to Bowman and Deal. So make sure those things are taken care of. I look to chatting with you online, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send me an email. Take care. See you online.